Is that the right number? It says this. Natasha.
In April 1990, an idea was born at the World UNESCO headquarters in Paris.
A month later, details of its implementation were discussed at the 32nd Conference of the World Scout movement. The hall represented almost all countries of the world, many of which later hosted the children from Chernobyl. The Chernobyl children were going to visit the Scouts. The planes were offered by the USSR Defense Ministry, and it was probably for the first time in history that the aircraft were so promptly cleared to land in the airports of the 15 European countries. Добро пожаловать, or welcome. These Russian words sounded in Ireland, Italy, Finland, Switzerland, and many other countries.
In the northern summer of 1990, some 1,200 children left the heavily irradiated areas of the USSR to holiday with the Scouts of the 15 participating European countries, to breathe clean, uncontaminated air, to drink clean, uncontaminated water, to eat clean, uncontaminated food. From the idea to actual implementation, less than 3 months had elapsed. The Scouts organised activities, camps, home hospitality, and much more. But how much do we know of the children, of their health, their circumstances, their lifestyle? How much do we know of Chernobyl?
Tell me, what do you expect of this trip to Europe? I want to recover. Recover from what? From radiation. During the past 4 years, I received quite a dose. There can be victims of wars and catastrophes of all ages. But children, victims, are especially hard to see because they're weak and helpless, and because they will remember for a long time the tragedy they lived through. Or they will probably never have a chance to grow up and will die of a slow death.
"42 children and 7 young Soviet adults flew into Melbourne on Easter Saturday 1991 to participate in a 1-month home hospitality visit. Only 3 months earlier, Scout Commissioners Richard Simpson, International, and Dr. Michael Kidd, Health, represented the Victorian Branch of the Scout Association of Australia at a planning and evaluation conference held in Moscow and Minsk. There, the details of the 1990 European program were reappraised, lessons learned, improvements suggested, and above all, the decision to do it again was overwhelmingly endorsed. This project is a good turn on a global scale. The partners in the project are the World Scout Bureau in Geneva, UNESCO in Paris, and the Soviet Children's Fund in Moscow. The criteria for selection of the children is that they be in the age range 10 to 16, that they suffer from continued irradiation and live in the contaminated areas, and that they be orphans in the care of the state. For the accompanying adult leaders, they needed to bring with them English skills to act as translators and their enthusiasm. Some 4 million people still live in the contaminated zones. 800,000 of them are children. 80,000 of these children live in the orphanages. In each orphanage live 100 to 200 children. After Chernobyl, many families were separated. Some children lost their parents, others were moved away, some were abandoned. These kids need a chance.
It's a very great pleasure to extend to our visitors from the Chernobyl area a great welcome to Victoria, or as you would say, Privyet.
Belarus, Western Russia and the Ukraine received the worst of the fallout. After Chernobyl, many villages were abandoned, farms evacuated, towns destroyed. People were moved to safe areas only to discover they were not safe. In the Scout program, the children were formed into groups of 6, each with a Soviet leader. 7 Scout groups spread around metropolitan Melbourne became their hosts. Each host family had to have a child of the same age. And so for our Soviet visitors, we provided a host brother or sister, a host family, a host Scout group, a host community. The key to the program was its local implementation.
My name is Roger. I'm a Scout. We're planning lots of fun things for you to do.
On the first day, the local groups shared a light lunch, and the Soviet kids reassured that each of them had a host family. The translators were already at work informing their children of what would happen over the next couple of days. But of course, the kids were tired. Many slept for 12 hours. The next day, all the groups ran their own orientation day. Again, the translators joined the Scout leaders in explaining what was planned. This was a two-way program. The Soviet kids couldn't speak English, but then the Australians couldn't speak Russian. Our picture phrase books helped, but then sign language, smiles and frowns, and games took over as the nationalities blurred into one.
In Tokyo, Richard met us.
We explained to the children where they were. We introduced the children to Australian flora and fauna. The most important Australians in the program were the host brothers and sisters, together with their families. In the days ahead, a range of activities took place involving thousands of people from all walks of life. The zoo provided a perfect media opportunity as well as being a highlight for the children. Even the Premier paid us a visit. The zoo day was planned for all participants, but the scout groups were encouraged to organise their own outings. The Soviet children come from a centralised, institutionalised background. Local programming would debase the structure. Not all the kids would go home with the exact same memories. Barbecues, the beach, all new experiences for our Soviet friends. Many of them had seen the ocean only in books or films. And of course, Puffing Billy was a must. As the program coincided with the school holidays, all the host families were able to take part in our special Scout train. Friendships between the Australian and Soviet children were by now firmly established.
Another pole I'll see if I've got a slightly thin.
Working and playing together. The one-week holiday camp held in the school holidays was run jamboree style. Each scout group sent along its fully kitted troop, each troop comprising 6 Soviet and 6 Australian children. Kids learnt from each other. Of course, the Soviet leaders were part of the action together with the scout leaders. The camp also gave the host mum a break. After all, a lot of the home hospitality fell to the mums. The camp had a queue store for the food, camp hospital, medical centre, full range of activities, rock concerts, art and craft, coffee shop. This week was probably the highlight of the month. Many of the simplest camp gadgets were new experiences to test oneself in a way never tried before.
Your name, what is it?
That what those children of Chernobyl also need is a change of scenery with fresh food and clean air to help their immune systems at least partly recover. The Victorian Branch of the Scouting Association of Australia is planning to bring 50 Soviet children to Australia for a holiday in March. International Scouting Commissioner of Victoria, Richard Simpson, is on the line. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Anne.
Now, your European counterparts have completed a similar project, taking some children to Europe. Was it successful?
It was very successful, Anne. The program came about when the Soviet ambassador to UNESCO sought help, and UNESCO in Paris turned to the World Bureau of Scouting in Geneva to mount a campaign. Obviously, they went to the European countries first, and this is only, of course, last June, July and August.
So were there physical and psychological benefits for the children who went to Europe?
Very much so. We attended a conference in December, that is myself and Dr. Michael Kidd from the Victorian Branch of Scouting, held in Moscow and in Minsk, the capital of Belarus. And here we saw some of the children and have, of course, seen the benefits that they have gained as a result of the program, not only physical, but also their mental outlook.
Community and media interest was intense, and media coordinator Andrew Taylor helped promote and also control media matters. Front page newspaper articles, nightly news updates, current affairs, national radio and television programs. Local papers ran articles about the new kids on the block. Magazines had feature colour spreads. Scouting was seen by the community at the forefront of the contemporary issues of Chernobyl, of East-West relationships, of peace and understanding. Medicare cover was granted, the health issues were paramount, and Dr. Michael Kidd faced the press repeatedly.
Soviet Union last year, I talked to many medical experts and paediatricians and health authorities in the Soviet Union, and their belief from these pilot programs in the Crimea is that it has the potential to actually prolong the lives of these children through making them healthier and through giving them the ability to fight off the development of serious infection or the long-term development of serious disease.
Hard to believe this was the first game of Australian rules football that Oleg Selejoev had seen. As his newly adopted team Melbourne took a hammering in the first quarter, he quickly discovered that a fan's lot is a mixture of passion and pain.
Financial support came from so many sources: Rotary clubs, Lions, businesses. The unions of a whole city building site wanted to meet the kids and present a cheque for $4,000. But the success of the program was chiefly dependent on the host families. There, a stable home environment was provided. Children learnt to live as a family. They shared in the household duties and tried their hands at a range of home activities. It was all good fun. Communication, thought to be the greatest challenge, didn't seem to be a problem. The Soviet children all had a day at school with their host brothers, and as most kids remarked, they're just like us. Yes, the children had access to luxuries they don't know at home, but should these have been denied them? Yes, it cost a lot of money to pay the Western currency half of the airfares, but it was worth it. Yes, both the children and the families were sad when it was time for them to go home, but it wouldn't stop us doing it all over again.
Natasha.